So I've watched 5 Star Trek movies this week, with 3 of them being back-to-back in a marathon. I think I'm good for a while.
From the old movies of 30 years ago and beyond,
to the world of the new films of the last 30 years.
to the movies that are now playing, this is Old, New, and Now Playing. And now, here's your host, Will Robinson Smith.
Hello and welcome to Old, New, and Now Playing, your time machine through the world of movies. As the voiceover guy said, I am your host, Will Robinson Smith, and thank you so much for joining me today. And can you believe it's been 50 years since we first got Star Trek? I certainly can. I mean, after watching all the movies this week, there's a lot to love in this franchise, and they're always trying to keep it fresh and innovative. And speaking of keeping it fresh, of course, this weekend we're getting the brand new movie Star Trek Beyond, and so let's not waste any time. Let's head off into the final frontier. This is your feature presentation. Star Trek Beyond is the third film in the series kicked off by J.J. Abrams' Star Trek in 2009, and while Abrams directed the first two, this movie sees Fast and Furious director Justin Lin at the helm. The film starts off about 3 years after the events of 2013's Star Trek Into Darkness, in which the Star Trek Enterprise is a few years into its 5-year mission to explore deep space. As the crew docks with the nearest Federation starbase, Yorktown, we find our heroes at personal crossroads. Spock and Uhura, played by Zachary Quinto and Zoe Saldana respectively, have drifted apart. Some of the crew are becoming a bit stir-crazy from spending so much time in space, and Captain Kirk, played once again by Chris Pine, is debating whether or not he should stay aboard as captain. While the Enterprise is at Yorktown, a female alien appears in an escape pod asking for help for a stranded ship. When the Enterprise goes to answer the call, they're ambushed and end up stranded and scattered on a desolate planet. They not only have to find each other, but also find a way to stop the aliens who attack them and have their sights set on destroying the Federation. Let me say right off the bat that this movie is not only fun, but it's also really funny too. It's co-written by Simon Pegg, who stars of course as Scotty, and while the other films I thought had a lot of good laughs in them, don't get me wrong, this one is just riddled with humor and had a lot of good laugh out loud moments for me. Partly that's due to Scotty being more heavily featured in the movie. Obviously, Pegg knows how to write for himself, as seen in other movies like the Cornetto trilogy, but it was nice to see how well he was able to write for the Star Trek universe as well. And it's not just Scotty getting the laughs. I mean, of course he gets a lot of them, but virtually all the characters on the Enterprise crew have great comedic moments throughout the film, and beyond just getting some of the good yucks, this illustrates another point that I really liked about the film, the fact that it felt very evenly spread among a lot of the characters. In the first two films, we get to see all of the Enterprise crew, but the story really focuses on the story arc of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, played by Karl Urban, which makes sense. The trio was really the core of the original series and the movies that were spawned from it. But in this film, because the characters are forced apart for much of the movie, we're exposed to more of the rest of the crew and get to see some combinations that we really haven't seen before. Like watching Kirk and Chekhov, played by the late Anton Yelchin, work together, or seeing Uhura and John Cho's Mr. Sulu team up. The film also does a good job of introducing newcomers into the universe, chiefly Sofia Boutella and Idris Elba. Boutella plays Jayla, an alien scavenger that Scotty meets and allies with to help find the rest of the crew and stop the aliens seeking to destroy the Federation. She's tough, yet kind, and while there were some hints that maybe she and Scotty could have some kind of relationship in the future, in this movie she was a very independent character who more than held her own alongside the rest of the crew. Plus, the physical design of her character was really cool. Also, I feel like if you want to elevate any movie, regardless of the genre, just go ahead and chuck Idris Elba in there. He plays the villain of the movie, Krall, a man seeking revenge on the Federation after they wronged him. Even when he's in makeup, there's a certain power and poise that Elba brings to his roles that is magnetic, and this movie is no different. Also, there's a specific reason that he looks the way he does. The reveal of why is a great moment in the movie. And like with the J.J. Abrams directed films, this movie also has a lot of fan service. Like, there's this one scene when Jayla is talking with some of the Enterprise crew, and she mentions a giant green space hand, and there were some guys that were over on one side of the screening that I was at that just busted up laughing, and don't worry if you don't get the reference. I didn't get it either. I had to look it up. But there are a lot of universal laughs in this film. It feels like they took story elements from Wrath of Khan and just spread them over this new trilogy. You had the Kobayashi Maru sequence and theme play out in Star Trek. A version of the Khan story arc was the core of Star Trek Into Darkness. And here we see the storyline of Kirk's birthday, with him discussing with McCoy the idea of growing older and whether staying in space is right for him. Really, the only thing they haven't mined from The Wrath of Khan is the idea of terraforming a planet with the Genesis Project. I'm betting either that or the Klingon War will probably be the plot of the fourth movie. One gripe I had with the film, though, was their overuse of the rolling camera shot. It was done a bit in the J.J. Abrams films, and don't get me wrong, it's a really cool trick to show motion or have a unique scene transition, but I felt like it was just a bit overplayed in this movie. It's almost like the camera roll is Justin Lin's version of the lens flares that had become synonymous with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. Nevertheless, this is a fun, big blockbuster film that's exactly what I want in the middle of the summer. The CGI and costumes are well done, the action is great, and there's more of a focus on the traditionally secondary characters without it feeling bogged down with different storylines. I give Star Trek Beyond an 8.5 out of 10. So I happened to see the movie in 3D because it came at the end of the Star Trek marathon I was watching at my local Century Theater, but I feel like for you, the 3D probably doesn't justify the cost of paying that extra amount to go and see it in that format. But you should definitely see it on the big screen. It's definitely worth that experience. So those are my thoughts on Star Trek Beyond. If you've had a chance to see the movie, what did you think about it? And what's your favorite of the new trilogy of Star Trek films? I personally, I don't know, I'm leaning between either this movie or the 2009 one. I don't know, I'm on the fence. And just before this movie hit theaters, news came out that we are in fact getting a fourth Star Trek movie with this cast. J.J. Abrams confirmed the news with Access Hollywood and dropped a few other tidbits as well. Abrams confirmed that the movie will see Captain Kirk getting to meet his father George Kirk, with Chris Hemsworth reprising the role. Abrams also added that the series will not recast the role of Chekhov, played by the late Anton Yelchin, who died earlier this year in a freak accident. Looking to the future, things are going to be a little bit different for the next couple of weeks. I'll actually be out of town for a little while, so this Friday I'll have my review of Jason Bourne, and then the next weekend I'll be talking about Suicide Squad, but there aren't going to be old or new reviews for either week, so just be aware of that. And that will do it for this episode of Old, New, and Now Playing. If you like this review, go ahead and give it the old thumbs up, and if you want to stay up to date with everything we've got going on with this channel, just go ahead and click that subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and live long and prosper.